it's not a 9 to 5 job. So I'm really clear. This is not a 9 to 5 job. And if you want that, that's great.
Yeah.
But this is not for you. And that, for our company, we need a self-starter. We need curiosity. We need passion. We know that we need people that are thinking outside the square and, hey, this is not my role and that's your role and I'm not going outside of that. No. And we still can get it wrong. Like sometimes we've hired the wrong people or people have joined us and it's not right for them. And that's okay too, but that's why we have to be really clear.
Hi guys, very excited to welcome you today to another episode of the Future of Skills podcast, a podcast where you're finding the right and relevant information about the future-proof skills in the age of AI. And today with me, I'm very pleased to welcome Kelly Hartman, someone who is looking into the career futures of you, the many young people, the career change makers, someone who knows how to evaluate the right candidate and how to hire them too, as she is in the position of a chief people officer in the fintech. Kelly, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here today.
I do have a list of questions I prepared for today, but I'm not necessarily going to follow all of them and not in order, because what we're interested in is in your real take on things, right? In your experience, what has led you to the world of career evaluations, the talent development, because you do have this focus I've seen in your public records of the focus on the talent development and the talent acquisition. Therefore, it's really important to find out from your perspective, how have you found yourself with a very laser-focused interest into this?
Sure. So I started my career very early on as career development for a steel factory. And I think early on it was like, I don't know how to assess someone's career, what they need, without actually going to talk to them, without actually learning what they do, spending time on the factory floor and co-creating something with them. So I think for me, when I look at talent development, it's about understanding what motivates people. What motivates me could be very different than, some of my team members. And I have to understand what motivates each person and make sure that we have quite an inclusive offering for them. So I don't know, I've always been interested in people as a whole, and even just talking to people, traveling around the world like I do, that is a passion of mine. And it's understanding people and what motivates them. So there's no different when you're working in an organization to create a culture that you want to understand what motivates them. And that's the same in hiring too. I get to meet a lot of people. Some of them I love, some of them I become friends with, and I never hire them because, and that happens all the time. I think the other day I was speaking to someone and she was single, working crazy hours where she was at, and we started speaking because I had the same thing, and I was like, I had no time for a boyfriend or a partner because I was working so crazy, and I love work. And I turned her off my company because we're a startup, and it doesn't mean we're working all weekends. We don't do that. But sometimes you do need late nights, and sometimes it's all encompassing, and so I have to let people know where we're at. But we had an amazing conversation and I learned what motivated her and realized it wasn't us.
How exciting. And it's probably also the right take when it comes to the candidate who wants a role where they could bring in some more value, as you rightly pointed out before our conversation has started. You want someone who would add that value, right? As opposed to just fit in the culture, which are two very different things, aren't they?
For sure.
And when you're just giving them that preference in terms of making a clear-cut choice as to where they are at the minute and if they're a good fit also for themselves and the company, that's quite an honest approach, isn't it? Quite an integral one.
Most people, I do my spiel when I interview and they're like, wow, we've never heard someone be so honest, because someone's once told me, well, the expectations were different than what I thought. And I was like, but I know I'm always really clear. So now I make it even clearer, almost to the point where the people that really want to work with us, they will tell us, and in the interview, where others, a lot of the time, I could probably turn people off and say, actually, this is not for me. I need more structure or process, or actually, I love my real work-life balance.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, like I said, we have our weekends and things like that, but it's not a 9 to 5 job. So I'm really clear. This is not a 9 to 5 job. And if you want that, that's great.
Yeah.
But this is not for you. And that, for our company, we need a self-starter. We need curiosity. We need passion. We know that we need people that are thinking outside the square and, hey, this is not my role and that's your role and I'm not going outside of that. No, I mean, I jump on everything, to help the company, whatever it is, and we need people like that are really passionate about it. And I meet people and they're not. And I think that's okay. Like, I think if you're honest, then that is, at least we're setting expectations straight.
It's that, but it's also the fact that it seems from what you're saying, it's also you, making a favor to them in that sense, right? Because they don't want to be necessarily time wasting element bringing in, or likewise you don't want necessarily to make the wrong decision, right? On the other hand side. So it's just laying it all plainly on the table and making sure that there's no levers out there, isn't it?
Yeah. And we still can get it wrong. Like sometimes we've hired the wrong people or people have joined us and it's not right for them. And that's okay too, but that's why we have to be really clear.
Yeah.
Have a very clear strategy about what we're looking for beyond just the technical. Like, look, I can't assess someone that's coding, right? I can't assess that, but I can assess the grit. I can assess the curiosity. I can assess the honesty. Like, one of my big questions is, tell me a time you've screwed up. And then I say, I'm not trying to catch you out here. I want to know, because for us, accountability is a big thing.
Yep.
So tell us what you did, what you learned, and how you dealt with it at the time. And then sometimes I'm vulnerable and I share like, oh my God, I can remember my screw up and my big one and I still cringe at it, to let them know. And then they laugh too. But sometimes people will just give me a really weak answer or, hey, I haven't really screwed up because, I don't make mistakes. And I'm like, well, we're human. We all make mistakes. So there must be something.
It's not that credible, is it?
Yeah. So that is one really big red or green flag for me. Like if someone can really share and be honest and be humble about it and then share their learnings and share how they dealt with it at the time, that's really important for me.
How exciting, Kelly. Thank you so much. It sounds like it's a lot we will be picking up in these conversations. But before we do so, very curious, as per our traditional question, to find out a little bit more about yourself. And that is, first question would be your 3 words. How would you describe yourself in 3 words?
I think passionate.
That
very passionate. I think I'm very empathetic.
Yeah.
And I'm curious.
Absolutely. And curiosity, you've mentioned not once, is to be one of the keywords in your hiring process, isn't it?
Yeah.
Looking back a little bit in terms of your background, what has brought you into the career sector before it has happened to be your actual profession and, the pathway. Can you let us know a little bit about your, early days mentorships, some of the early career blocks that without them, you probably wouldn't have found yourself where you are today? Are there any of these?
Yeah, for sure. So I am Australian, started off, I think I studied psychology. So wanted to be an organizational psychologist, and then I thought maybe a social worker. At first, actually, I wanted to be a primary teacher like my dad, wanted to follow his footsteps. I'd always go to school, and back in the days, I'd go to, and my mum worked in the schooling and education too.
Yeah.
And back in the days, I'd go to uni and then, a teacher didn't turn up or was sick and I'd just jump into class. You could never do that now. But that was like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So I would be teaching kids and helping, and the principals at the school would just say, Cal can teach a session or a lesson. So, and I'd go to school camps with my dad. So I always wanted to do that. And then studied psychology and then realized at 22, I didn't have the life skills to become a full psychologist. I didn't think, because I didn't have life experience. I'm like, I don't have enough life experience to help people with that. And so I went into the careers office, again, curious, always asking questions. And they said, hey, we've got this assignment for someone in the school holidays. Would you be interested in jumping in? I said, yeah, sure. And it was stats analysis on an engagement cultural survey. And I was not great in stats. So I went and got a tutor to help me. And then an extra tutor to help me do this assignment. And then I was selected to work for an airline to analyze all their cultural surveys. And I went on, and I think I've always done above and beyond. And I went on and did this massive report. And the head of sales and marketing was like, wow, like you did this on your own accord. And they paid me in first class trips around Australia to talk to all the sales agents and understand, hey, why they came up with this. So it was almost like the follow-up action planning. And they couldn't believe how much people told me and opened up. That they
That's a skill.
So they ended up paying me on free flights to Bali with all my friends and family. Exactly. And I think that started my career and my curiosity to want to work for more org psychology. And I worked for a psychologist I remember in the department of taxation in Australia, and I loved it. Like, he was so great. And I started really loving the psychology around organizations, people, what motivated them, cultures and things like that. And I think I've always been passionate because I'm like, if we spend so much time at work, how can we make a great environment for people? So I didn't follow up the traditional route.
Yep.
And from them, I applied for all the graduate programs. And again, I was in the lift with someone and I was making jokes. I didn't know who he was. And he ended up being my interviewer. He was the head of HR for the whole of BHP Steel, which was a steel. And I remember going, it was like a weekend away in a place called Wollongong in New South Wales, Australia. And all these graduates were like sucking up to all the executives, like, you know, and I was like, oh my God, I can't do this. Like I can't do fakeness. I can't do realness. So I think I went to bed early, spoke to them, and he rang me up the next day and he said, I'm going to create a role for you. And so here I was, first job out of university. And I was head of employee development at one of the steel factory. Again, I didn't sit with the corporate white collar in the office. I went on the factory floor. I ate with everyone. I was the only female, like with my steel cap boots and my hard hat. And within 2 months, they gave me a car and promoted me to employee development of all of the sites. And then I set up our HR function. So
from scratch.
Wow.
And
so I think if you've got the tenacity, the curiosity, you work with people, you can do anything you want. And a lot of people are like, do I need a degree in HR, CIPD? And I'm like, no, you just need life experience and you need support and curiosity and grit and creativity and you can create what you want. So I never went the traditional route.
Yeah. Is this the case still for people who would want to even change their careers and go into the HR? Let's say they're in a different completely industry and they want to go into HR. What would it take?
I think just someone that has common sense, honestly, and that likes people.
Love it.
So a lot of people used to say to me, I can't believe you're in HR because you actually care for people. So I never used to like being in HR. That's the honest truth. And I used to work a lot. I started my career in the banks.
Yeah.
And I'd always work within the technology business. So I never worked in HR. So that the CIOs would always create roles for me. And I think that you've got to understand business too. And you've got to have business acumen. You've got to, I can't hire people. I can't develop people without understanding actually what they do. And it doesn't mean I'm going to learn how to code, but I understand technology, incident and problem management, sales, marketing, sitting with the customer service people and being on the phones with them. You've got to go out to clients. I think you've got to understand every aspect. So you've got to be commercial. But I think a lot of people can do HR if they wanted to and they've got a passion and understanding. But it's just not being nice to people too. Nice. You've got to be real and honest and you've got to be commercial and you've got to understand the business but have a lens of care for people, which, I believe I have. I think that sometimes I have to make tough decisions and you're not always liked for that, but you're doing what's right for the people sometimes.
Yes.
And you're doing what's right for the business. So if people are complaining and they're not happy and then you do things to try to fix that and they're still complaining and they become toxic, and I'm like, you don't have to stay. I always say to people, you don't have to stay in the company. You have a choice, right? And I know some people don't have that. They've got mortgages of that. But if it's not working for them and it's not working for us, then you just have a really honest conversation and try to support each other. And I think that's it. I am very sensitive, so I used to want everyone to like me. So if I came in and someone didn't smile at me or didn't say how, I'd probably worry for the next week about that. But now it's I don't need everyone to like or love me.
Yeah.
And someone once said, yes, and so that is the truth. Like, I'm honest. I believe that I'm really real, and you'll I make mistakes like everyone else.
Yep.
And I think my mistakes is always looking for the good in people, even though they show me that maybe they're not so good. And you keep giving them a chance and chance. But my gut instinct on people, I have a really good read, doesn't let me down a lot of the time.
Now you mentioned an interesting point, the read on people. And I was just going into this area because it sounds like with your degree in psychology, you would have that analysis and a very clear-cut laser focus eye with details, right? And that's the question that I would have around the behavioral analysis. Say the candidate is coming and you would want to interview the candidate. What would be your take? What would be some initial signals? What are you looking for in a candidate to give him a chance to make sure that, it's a candidate that you would want to see again for the role? Like, how quickly do you analyze a candidate from behavioral standpoint to know that that's the one to progress further?
It's a great question. And there's many qualities, right? Because
Yes.
we're all very different. Honesty is my number one. So, honesty is my number one. So again, like, if I've asked someone, like, tell me a time you've screwed up, and accountability is really big for us. So it's like owning up to when you make a mistake. And I share that I've made some of the worst mistakes, and I constantly learning. But if a candidate can't, especially with like many years experience, can't think of any mistakes they've ever made, and they're not really honest about it, and I tell them that I'm not trying to catch them out, I wouldn't hire them. If they can't ask me questions at the end, like, because I'm looking for curiosity, like I want to know if they're curious, what do they want to know about the business, our growth, our strategy, what markets we're going to go into, even about the culture. But if someone just asks about work-life balance and, cliche questions that are all about them and not about the business, that's a bit of a red flag for me. I want someone that is present. Like, I had a candidate the other day, they're looking all over the place, like not looking over, but just not interested, like, in the conversation. Like, arrogance is really not one that I would take. Like, everyone's got different facial expressions, of course, and neurodiversity. So sometimes people can't look you in the eye or things like that as well.
Yeah.
So I understand that. But when they're not interested or very arrogant or dismissive, that would be a real concern for me. So it's passion for me, like they're passionate about something. They're curious is one, that they can deal with us, like they can deal with ambiguity, a lot of change, because things change in our environment, at a scale up. Compassion, they're compassionate about, they care for others as well and not just themselves, is important for us, and that they're a real team player, and that, so I think that's really important. It's funny you say about psychology, because a lot of people say to me, Kel, you've got a psychological background, you studied it, is that the way you're good with people? And I'm like, no, I actually think you don't learn that. I think it's my travel. I've traveled over 100 countries, a lot by myself, in really unfamiliar environments. And you've got to get a good read of people, especially if you're a woman traveling alone in some countries that I have. You have to have a good read on people, and you've got to trust that instinct sometimes. Mm-hmm. And my instinct doesn't let me down. Like, even though I've questioned stuff before, and then and I think my boss, my 360 recently, he said, Cal, you're always really outspoken, but sometimes you just let things go because, maybe we've challenged and it's too hard. And it's true. Like, there's some people that I didn't really want to hire, and I should have spoken more, but I just let, if too many people want to hire, I don't want to be a blocker either, but I will raise my concerns.
Got you. And raising the concerns is probably quite crucial in the environment where you, as you said yourself, you need to be honest, especially in your role. You're also helping the company, so you kind of have to say what you're thinking about, even though it might not be to the pleasing ears of the other party.
Yeah.
And that's definitely a trait that comes with experience. You said yourself, traveling all sorts of countries, meeting, reading people. And reading people is quite a skill. I'm quite fascinated by, this element of empathy. The other day I've attended an event and there was this historian who talked about empathy, that it's something that obviously is a differentiating factor when it comes to AI, for instance, right? It will probably take ages until that element alone will become pregnant with that entity.
Exactly.
Right? The humans own it. It's just a case of just surfacing it. It's not like you said earlier, you don't necessarily need to learn it. It could come natural, but it's just you being curious about other people, isn't it?
Yeah. And you've got to be like, I'm always conscious. You don't want to hire people like you either. So sometimes
that's a great point.
Yeah,
thank you for sharing.
Yeah, and my team is completely diverse. We're really different, and I do that intentionally. So how do you blend in the team? Because it is a culture add to the organization. We don't want to fit each other. We don't want to be the same. We want things that are really different. People that think differently, and some people are nervous when they come, and so my job is to make them feel like, sometimes I'm like, whoa, this is going to be tough because they're not giving me stuff. But then you've seen people turn around, they warm up, they're nervous, especially they're speaking to an executive or they've been out of work for a while. So I think it's really interesting. But I'm very honest in the interview. So if I like someone and I think they're great, because I do the initial stages usually.
Yeah.
I'll just go, okay, let's get you sorted for the next. Are you free next? I don't wait around. I'm not going to wait around a week. I hate that. I don't need to meet other candidates to see if this one's okay. If I think anxious
about that,
yeah,
right? And making them actions in return.
No, but I'll also tell someone if I don't think they're going to, this is not going to, I'll say it in the interview. There's nothing, I don't wait for weeks. And I'll tell them, hey, I don't think you've got these skills, or I'm concerned about this. I'm very honest. And I've actually told someone, I'll never forget once in an interview, I once told them, you come across really arrogant. And I never forget this. And this person was surprised. He said, what do you mean? And I gave him examples of, and he goes, I never thought of it like that, because
I see.
Because he said he got feedback once that he was really arrogant. And I said, I can understand why. And he looked at me and he goes, why?
He didn't go around the bushes. He literally
I just went. It's the Aussie way. I ended up hiring him because he took the feedback really well and he understood. I said, he said, I think sometimes I'm a bit insecure about stuff. And so, and I can still picture that day. We were in the office and he said it was the best interview of his life because someone's never been so honest with him.
Did it end up being a good hire?
Yeah, really great hire. Yeah. And I look for different things. They don't have to have every single skill set, but if they've got a grit and a determination and they just keep coming back, sometimes I'm like, wow, they're at it.
How exciting. So that talks about the fact that you're obviously giving people an extra chance. It's your read of them that comes across. You're saying to them, hey, this is how you come across. So take it or leave it. Yeah. But it's the attitude ultimately that you're after, isn't it? It's just knowing that what you've put forward for them was taken the right way. And if it has been, that's your reward. I'm going to hire you then. Yeah.
Yeah. Not always. But yeah, in that, because this person had a lot of great qualities. But and it was his answer that said.
So it was a trade-off, isn't it?
And it was the way he was sitting. I said, you're sitting just like this, you don't care and everything. I'll never forget it. And so, and I also hired someone in my team, and I'll never forget, it was my first day in a company, and he rang me because I was a CPO, and he rang me blasting me because he didn't get promoted and he was promised. And I said, don't you ever speak to me like that. I'm trying to help you, so calm down. And he said, I'm sorry. I've got all these emails and promises. I said, I get it and I'm trying to help, but this is my first day. So don't. And so I said, why don't you come into the office and let's talk? Then I hired him for my head of talent acquisition and he was amazing. So I'm very forgiving and if someone takes my feedback, so that was an internal mobility move. I'm really honest. If people take feedback well and don't get defensive and own up to it, that's a big plus for me. But right now, because we're such a small organization, we call it hell yeah. It's I'm blown away. If you were to turn me down in this job, I'd be devastated. That's the way I want to feel about every candidate that comes in. Yeah. And that means skills, attitude, everything. I want to work with this person, and that's really important to us. And then we have a policy of no toxic culture. So if there's toxicity, gossip, any of that bullshit, I should say, that happens, we want it out straight away, and we just don't tolerate that.
See, that's a good point, actually, because when it comes to the toxicity of a given environment, it is being defined by various people in various ways, right? You've just mentioned a trait, gossiping, right?
Gossiping, blame, talking about people, being non-inclusive to people, like being rude, obnoxious, like that type of quality, we just don't tolerate. And I love that we call it out, and that is so intentional. And I talk about it in every single interview. Like if we don't because I've been in environments where I've had to watch my head or, watch my back, and you waste so much energy when we've got so much work to do. And I must admit, I love my team. I love the executive team. I love my HR people team. I trust them inherently. We all back each other, and that's the most important thing, and there's people in the organization. And I think when you create a culture from scratch like that, it's critical, because, I've joined cultures much later, and then that stuff has been around for a while, and it becomes cancerous, to be really honest. I remember it. And I've had a lot of stress in my life for this, and I think this is the first organization, I just love being part of. It's hard. There's hard stuff some days. But I love everyone I work with, and I want to make a difference, and I want to grow it, and I want everyone that thinks like that.
So it sounds like we're drifting into an interesting topic here, the culture, isn't it? And by means of which we've discussed a tiny bit around the fact that you're building currently the culture, it sounds like, right, within this organization, which means that you don't need to deal with the heritage part of whatever has been built before. And that's a great starting point, right? So it means that it's a molding process. It's quite an exciting bit. You're also setting it all up from scratch. Question is here. Do you think that obviously the managers, and that could be my assumption, but it sounds to me that the managers are the ones who are instilling, they're the ambassadors of your cultural setup, right? So it sits with them, within their remit, to actually make sure that they reinforce that message, and it sits within the team. Would that mean that if the toxicity as a factor appears, this virus that goes and literally just touches people, would it mean that the managers have not done their job well?
No, because I think culture is everyone, right?
Okay.
We're all responsible for ourselves and the culture. But the managers have a big role to play. So, I speak that executives, senior managers, we've all got a role to play, and we can't be involved, and you have to have that boundary. And I've learned from the past, you can't get involved with stuff like that. So I do think culture is everyone. It's how we behave. It's how we act. It's not a tick of the box. It's not a set of values. It's what we live, what we reward. And then what are the repercussions if you are, And that's for us, is we don't want people that partake. It doesn't, in that type of stuff,
Kelly, how interesting. To me, this question around culture is quite important, because I appreciate to some cases, in some interviews, it could be perceived as, subjective. It's not something that necessarily comes across as a set of rules, like, a Magna Carta or something, where you can find, okay, point one says that you shouldn't be doing X. If you did that, then, there's a punishment involved or the reward. So it's not like that black and white kind of thing. How do you probe your candidates on culture? On cultural add-on or fit?
You ask about, give them examples of, maybe, I want empathy, as part of it. You understand. I want a teamwork when you've supported a team.
Yep.
I want to understand, hey, give me an example where you've seen toxicity. What did you do about it? And, so you ask specific questions and direct questions about, cultures and toxicity or behaviors that you didn't agree with, and how you dealt with it at the time. Or when you've been really, there's been times where I've been toxic, there's no doubt about it. So I own it, and I see what's happening, and you have to remove yourself from it. So tell me a time where you've been in some toxicity, and what did you do to get out of it? I'd want to know that. I want to know that they're really, and especially with leaders, it's a very different question, because it's how you create, a very empowering, trusting team.
What the answer needs to be for that question, so that you consider it, yes, that's a fit, that's a good candidate to hire?
Well, where they've owned up to something or
Okay.
removed themselves from something, like
So
give
didn't
me,
partake into any
yeah,
given...
or called out something when you weren't happy with someone, that they've got the confidence to do that, right? No matter what you are and what, I mean, I was calling out stuff when I was so junior in the organization, and I think that's always the way. Like, yeah, I'd stand up for stuff even if there's going to be consequences for my employment or things like that.
That's brave.
Yeah, I've been very brave, and I've had consequences of that too, for sticking up for what I believe in. Like, that's really important. Not everyone can do that, right? Like, as I said, some people have families to look after.
Mortgages.
But yeah,
Yep.
you just have to probe. And so sometimes the questions can go, a lot of people share a lot with me, as I said, So
Yeah.
I think that's really important, that you have to build the trust for them to tell you stuff too.
Would that sharing a lot with you at some point, because it sounds like you need to be almost like a priest, you take it all in, right? You shouldn't be disclosing it further. Do you think at some point them sharing that makes them in their eyes more vulnerable? Or
For sure. But vulnerability is courage to me. So, if you're vulnerable, then you're courageous, as well. And so I look for courage very much. I look for someone that's real.
Gotcha.
I've had people that have shared stuff like, before I've even met them, like, talked about, like, hey, I've been through a really tough divorce or separation. I was in hospital with stuff, and I want to work for a place that's real and there's no bullshit or there's no... And then I've hired people, like, straight because they've been so honest about their story. Like, that's what I look for. Like, that's bravery, and that's vulnerability. But I pretty much hire those people for not... If they've got a big story, people don't always have that. And I know not everyone's like that. Like, some people might go, oh, that's oversharing. Well, then that's not the right company for you, And I think for me, a lot of people have always, I remember before I joined this company, I couldn't find that, oh my God, I just want to join them. Like, a lot of my feedback was, hey, we're not ready for her yet. And I was like, what aren't you ready for? Honesty, truth, because I will call stuff out. I will ruffle a few feathers. And I've done that, right? But my intention is to grow the company and do best for it. And if that means, hey, I've got to call out some stuff that aren't working or things like that. But when I knew this was the right company, as my founders go, Kel, tell us all the shit we're doing wrong. We can't wait. And I was like, oh my God, where I did that in previous company, and then, I was outcast because I would call stuff out. But I'm not doing it to call anyone out. I'm doing it because I want what's best for the company, and then we can all work together. Like, I want to help support people. That is what you want, right?
Sounds absolutely. And sounds like you're the one not only building that as a culture, for everybody else to feel that they are partaking and they're part of the bigger piece. It's also the fact that you want to leave your heritage, right, for the others to follow. For that to happen, let's say, God forbid, at some point you will probably want to do some changes and, leave to join another organization. I'm saying God forbid, who knows, there's a reason. So
no, I don't want to leave.
I
don't want to leave another organization.
Exactly. So it's a good then fit for the word. But in terms of, let's say, if you weren't there after a while, and the culture and the heritage would stay, what would be the processes involved to make sure that they're still being followed?
Yeah, I think that's happening now. Like, people, we've got an executive team, we've got senior leaders, we've got people in my team, like, are living those every day. I see big changes now. Like, you've got, like, it's not just me creating it, it's all of us doing it together and holding ourselves accountable.
Yeah.
Making sure that we're hiring the best people. Like, we train everyone on that. We say what we look for. Like, often people, like, some of the leaders are like, Cal, how do you give us all these good candidates? And I'm like, well, I meet a lot before they even get to you, right? So you have to know exactly what you're looking for straight away. You have to call stuff out. There has to be consequences and rewards for great stuff and not. So those discussions are already happening. People know what they're looking for now too. So it's not my responsibility. It's everyone's responsibility.
It sounds like you're like a chef in a people's kitchen. You kind of, okay, so I'm going to do these ingredients here and this process is here to make sure that these are being all stack up and, people follow.
But
That's
it's
exciting.
also in our training, in our development. Like, at the moment, we're doing one on feedback. And I said to the execs,
love
we
that.
all have to do this. Like, we're not great at it. Like,
Yeah.
if we're exiting someone and they don't know the reason why, or it's a shock to them, then we haven't done. Like, we have to. I always say we have to say we've done everything we can to help this person, and if we can't say that, then that's on us too. So us having a good reflect on ourselves. Like, our CEO just, we worked on just running a 360. We spent over an hour and a half going through each of our 360s in an open room to talk about how we can support each other. I shared my 360 with my team straight away, and like, I tell them where I need help as a leader, and like, we want that honesty. We want that challenge. I want the radical candor. I do believe in Brene Brown's clear is kind, unclear is unkind. Like, that is my motto. But now we've just sent a feedback survey to everyone in the organization to help build our training. So they tell us what they need to, and it has to be very genuine. So they're embedded in our training, our rewards, our promotions, our hiring. So we're living these things, and we're just not tick box exercises.
Living and breathing by the sounds of it, isn't it? It reminds me of the philosophy that Mark Randolph, who I've had the pleasure of interviewing, he's the first CEO and co-founder of Netflix, and he has shared with me that this policy that they have instilled within Netflix around the radical candor and the honesty was absolutely revolutionary for them, because that allowed them not only to hire the right candidates, but to retain the right candidates as well. Hence why I'm very curious to find out from your standpoint, do you believe that there is this correlation around the hiring process and then the letting go of people, whereabout, it probably is equally painful for you as someone who needs to give this news to people when they kind of need to leave the company. But in terms of making sure that, as you said yourself, it is a lot more easier perceived from the other party, and the feedback process is as fair as it can be. Is there anything in particular as part of that process that you've instilled and you're like thinking, okay, I've done a great job as part of this process, and I think it makes people more comfortable now than, let's say, before when I was learning to do it?
For sure. Like, we didn't have those conversations before, and we thought by keeping people that we knew weren't right would be better, but most of the time people understand. Like, people see it. They're like, actually, that person wasn't really lifting their weight in the team. And actually the managers feel like having those conversations helps the person too. Like, we're giving them the opportunity, and we've seen people turn around by, hey, we've given them feedback. They might not have been performing, or their attitude wasn't great, and we're seeing people completely turn around, and then others don't. And then if it's an ongoing problem, then you've got to call it straight away. So hire slowly, fire quickly. If you see stuff, don't wait all the time.
And this is a nice gate you're opening in terms of trying to probe people who are not pulling their weight in. Are there any particular prerequisites you would say that would definitely indicate into that direction?
If they're not pulling their weight, well, in a company of our size, there's nowhere to hide. You can't hide. There's nowhere to hide. So we talk about that. Like, we say that in an interview. There's nowhere to hide here. You have to be a self-starter. You've got to. If you see something, grab it, We've got people helping out all over the place, like product helping sales, helping solutions, like, I'll help sales sometimes too, I help run offsite for them to bring the teams together. So there's nowhere to hide. There's nowhere to hide. And we don't want, like, we'd rather a lean company. Like, we've just got a Series B funding, and people are like, oh, you're having big offsites, you're hiring a whole lot more people. No, like, we're not. We're just hiring really great people.
See, and that shows that this is this element of caution that you guys are after in terms of making sure that if you're hiring someone, they need to stay, as opposed to, there are some startup cases out there, like plenty, where, they hire people massively just because they've got either some more funding or whatever, but then they let go people massively as well because, they no longer either have that much funding, or their performance numbers have just indicated that there's been a concrete slope out there. So it's this mismatch, isn't it, as part of the journey?
For sure. And you've got to be really... Like, I want every single hire to be brilliant. I want to be blown away, And there are people that I'm completely, when we hire, like, I'm blown away by. I'm like, I text my bosses and I'm like, you've got to meet this person. They're brilliant, And I'm getting the ingredient right. Like, I get it, right?
And over the years, you've been able to probe that part of your intuition that has led you to think, okay, that candidate has really blown me away from that interview process itself. Has it then confirmed long term? I know I kind of asked that question earlier, but is it something that you've absolutely seen that, all the strategies you've put in place for you, the filtering, has literally showed that these are the right candidates longer term?
Yeah, a lot of the time, but sometimes I haven't listened to my instinct, and I still also it has to be a mix of my instinct and then asking questions, right? But sometimes I've gone. You have to ask a lot of questions, and you give them scenarios too, and then sometimes there's an activity you want them to do to present, or a case study. Not getting them to do heaps of homework. Like ours is very brief. And that also shows how they'd act in a certain situation, and sometimes they're filtered out that way as well.
Kelly, are there any particular questions that you've noticed throughout your entire activity that you would say these are some of the most difficult questions, not because you wanted necessarily the candidate to fail, but because it's a win-win for both of you to be able to understand if there is a fit in the mix?
I think the one where the biggest screw up is one that I'll always ask.
Okay.
I'll always ask about their achievements or how they dealt, how they dealt, a time where they took initiative or where they had to question someone more senior than them or a very difficult client. A client was really pissed off with you. Like, what did you do? Like, how did you get around it? Or, a team member wasn't performing. If they're a leader, like, how did you deal with it,
Could you recall some of the examples of bad answers on these questions?
Bad answers?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think one where they've not made a mistake is like, I've never made a mistake. Or I joined the wrong company. Like, that was a bad mistake. Like, I get that. Like, but there's more to that. And I think also when I ask them, have you got questions for me? If they have no questions for me, I wouldn't hire someone like that. Because I don't, like, even if we're talking, you could be curious enough to even say, why did you join the company? Or what's most surprising for you? But if they can't think like that, or, I've been through I've been through a lot of the process and I've asked all the questions I want. Like, I'm like, you could have something for me,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And as part of the hiring process, I know that we're approaching the wrap up, but it's a lot of questions, obviously, that are so interesting as part of the conversation. I would be very keen on asking, but conscious of time, of course. However, there's this element around AI because we cannot avoid that part and not ask the questions. How much of a reliance do you think you guys have currently on AI as part of the hiring process, and how much of the reliance is part of the assessment throughout the
a lot on AI. Like, I'm dyslexic and have ADHD, so no one can understand my notes on candidates. So I put it through AI all the time. Our job descriptions are through AI. I put everything, my adverts, my LinkedIn. A lot is through AI. I mean, we've got an ATS that looks for uses ATI, but I also double check all the CVs and things like that too. Yeah.
Okay, because
I go through it myself sometimes. Like, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think sometimes the AI misses stuff, And then I will always, like, people do reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I say this, I respond to every single person. Like, even if to say, hey, you don't have the right skills. Like, I will always have someone in my team, even give them 10 minutes or so, if I think they've got the right skills. So I think AI, and then I ask candidates how they use AI in their role. And I want to know, because we have goals on that in our organization. Like, we all use AI throughout the organization. I rely on it. I think I rely on it much more than I thought I did. But then there's a human element too. I still need to connect.
Yes.
I want to know with a candidate that if I was stuck at an airport with them, that I wouldn't go crazy. Do you know what I mean? Like, that is one of my tests too. But I think, questions are that my red flags are if they're blaming people all the time, like, or they didn't take ownership of stuff. Like, if, hey, when I ask them what screwed up and they're blaming everyone else but themselves, like, there has to be some element that you did wrong,
Exactly.
So I want them to do that.
Got you. And then going back to the AI element then, if you were to have a question around, how much do they use, as you said yourself, you're asking this question, how much do they use AI? What needs to happen as part of their answer that you would absolutely say this is the wrong type of candidate?
Maybe if they've never used AI ever.
If they've never used, how about if they are overusing it?
Maybe. It depends what their role is, right?
Got it.
Maybe
Okay.
if they're honest and say, actually, you don't need the role, you could do it with AI. I don't know. Depends how. I think it goes back to the honesty again. Like, you have to feel that they're being really honest and true, you know?
Gotcha. So have a little bit more of your own inner instinct in order to be able to come up with the answer that would stack up. Excellent. Would there be anything?
Yeah, there's no one size fits all. Like,
No,
you know,
exactly.
like with anything, I can't say, like, I can't judge someone before even meeting them. I have to read them, read their cues, you know. I can't hire someone that we've never had a video call with, at least.
Oh, okay.
Like, I won't
good
do
to
my
know.
interviews on the phone, just phone calls. Like, they have to come through some kind of interview process. As in, if they're not coming into the office, because we've got an office, I want to see how they interact with people too. Even when I was hired at, you know, a couple of my interviews, I remember my previous one at Flywire, like, I had to have lunch with all the employees in Boston. I had to meet people, and I was tested and to see how I interact with people. And they told me other people that didn't get the job where they were so focused on the board members and the exec, they didn't even spend any time with the employees, where I did the opposite, because I'd already been through the process with the executives and on my thing, and I stayed late at night because I wanted to know everything about them.
Exciting, isn't it? That shows that your interest is there.
Yeah,
It's
so you
not,
want to know that they're. I
artificial
watch
in any
people.
way.
Yeah, I watch people in the office, like how they interact with people, like depending on their role, of course.
Yes.
You know, some people are shyer and that, and you understand. But if you're in a people role and you can't connect with people in the office, that's a red
concerning.
flag for me too.
Wow,
So you
that's
have to,
exciting.
so you have to look at each role. That we're looking for different things, right?
Sounds like it's an entire science and art behind it, doesn't it? Kaylee, I feel like we've only scratched the surface, to be honest. It's a lot. You're like a fountain of knowledge when it comes to all of these, nitty-gritties and the processes and what you do and how you approach people per se, because as you said yourself, you need the right people in the role, but to be able to ensure that, it comes with a lot of experience. It's like an entire soup of ingredients that you put together, right? And that make sure they all surfaces.
But you have to train people up to do it too. Like, you can't be the only one. Like, my team are amazing, and this shows their curiosity. They're like, can I sit in an interview? I want to see how you do it. I don't want them to replicate everything I do. They've got their own style, but they learn certain tricks.
That sounds exciting. And to be fair, it also sounds that you've got this legacy process in place, be able to train other people to be able to then surface their own talent into it. And I can't be more grateful about the experience that we had today. Thank you so much for coming over.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, my lovely.
Bye.